I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Board. Today is Thursday, November 19th. It is now 7 o'clock. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Could I have a roll call, please?
Chairman Sean Poole.
Here.
Member Laurie Simpson.
Here.
Member Randy Stout.
Here.
Member Claudia Smith. Let the record show that Member Claudia Smith is not present at tonight's meeting. Member Lisa Burke.
Here.
City Attorney James Matthew.
Here.
Thank you. All right, for a little business prior to, do you have a motion regarding the minutes from last meeting or discussion regarding those minutes?
I move to accept the minutes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, fantastic. All right. Mr. Dallas.
Yes, sir.
We are here to reconvene the zoning change application for the villas at Cochee River. I'm assuming that all notices were done correctly and everything has been...
We reposted the signs on the property and notified, I believe, 62 residents that were within 200 feet.
Wonderful. Okay, great. Is your understanding as well, Ms. Burke?
That's what I understand.
Fantastic. Okay, great. So we're going to pick up right off where we left off. I understand that there's a PowerPoint presentation first that we'd like to watch, and then I wanted to find out if you'd like to submit that to the record as well. I have a copy of it, I'm assuming. Okay. Sal?
Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Tammy Verana with Verana Consulting in Safety Harbor, Florida, and I am supporting the city as staff this evening. We'll go through this PowerPoint presentation to let everybody know what the proposal is and what we found. Is this going to work here? Oh, let's try the other way. Try that one. Oh, there we go. Okay. So the request this evening is for a change to the zoning of this property, which subject side is shown on the right at 7616 Washington Street. It is to change the zoning from the R3 multiple family zoning district and the C1 community commercial zoning district to the planned unit development district. And this is to allow 126 single family attached units. That would be a maximum, so it could be less, but it couldn't be more. And then it would be also tied to a PUD development plan and specific standards, which we'll talk about in a second. So we looked at the surrounding area, we looked at existing uses, and you'll see the site in the middle, which includes vacant properties with some existing infrastructure that was built for a prior development approval, and your packet indicates what the history of the site was, but there was some development that occurred. The roads have been put in, the foundations or the pads for the soil work, I'll let the engineer speak to that, has been done for the lot layouts. And then around the property we see residential, mixed-use residential, and then some wetlands. For the future land use map, which is part of the city's adopted comprehensive plan, we see the surrounding areas has residential, it has commercial mixed use, and it also has recreation open space, which is in those wetland areas. And on the site, as you can see, that's commercial mixed use to the north, and then the main body of the site is residential. And then for the zoning, I told you what the zoning districts are within the site, but around the site we have residential 1, residential 2, commercial C3, and then also some R1, R1 to the bottom, and then A1, which are the wetlands, to the east of the site. And this is just a view from the street, so you can see from one direction and the other along Washington Street. So this is the PUD development plan, and the only, what changed is, I guess this is kind of strange here. I guess it's my mask. There was an addition of one parcel to the north since the time that this actually went through city approval in the past. That development approval did expire, and so that's why we're back here again today to relook at the site with the addition of the property to the north. And this is going to be a second phase because that property, because it's a new acquisition, has not gone through the Southwest Florida Water Management District permitting process. So while it's getting its permit approval, phase one can proceed once the property is rezoned. So under the PUD development plan, there is a proposal for certain development standards, and you'll see those on the left column. And I've put to the right column the current zoning and the standards that apply in those districts. So the standards that are being proposed are equal or exceed what's allowed in those existing or current zoning districts, except for front yard, which the applicant is asking for a 20-foot front yard setback from the street, as opposed to 25 in the R3 and the C1 district. They're also asking for a 10-foot separation between structures, as opposed to the 15 feet, which is in the R3 district. As you can see, C1 also allows for that 10-foot separation. And then for the rear yard, the applicant is proposing a 20-foot rear yard setback as opposed to a 25-foot in the R3. And as you can see, C1 aligns with what the applicant is requesting. This is a rendering of the attached single-family units or villas. So this is what they are proposed to look like. And then the site will have a clubhouse and a pool. And so the clubhouse elevation is at the top, and then you can see the site plan near Washington Street, near the entryway, is where the pool and clubhouse would be sited, and then there's a floor plan to the right. So for the analysis, the city's land development code requires that we look at criteria and standards for a rezoning. And the analysis of all of these criteria and standards are included in your packet, but we had a finding, a positive finding for each one of these standards, but I'll address a couple that were of interest last time. So we looked at number N, adequate public facilities. This is required in the city's comprehensive plan that you look at whether or not public facilities can be provided to serve this development at the adopted level of service standards. And those standards are for roads, potable water supply and facilities, wastewater facilities, stormwater drainage, and solid waste disposal. And our finding was that the city could, or that the adopted level of service standards would be met in all cases to serve this development. Last time we had a little bit of discussion about the transportation analysis, so I kind of laid it out on the bar to the right. So the city's standard for roads is a level of service D in the PM, or the afternoon peak hour, and that's a pretty typical standard across the board for all local governments in Florida. So sometimes it's worse, and it's somewhat on it can be likened to a scale of grades. So A is really free-flowing. You can go really fast, which that doesn't occur anymore in our urban areas. And then the D is progressing towards more congested at certain times, but not necessarily to the point where it's going to create a lot of extra time for people driving around. So that's the standard that the city set. So then we start to look at, well, what's going on Washington Street? And we look at what the capacity is. So at level of service D, how many trips could be on that road in the PM peak hour and still be considered acceptable from a level of service perspective. So we know it's 1,700. Then we look at these trip counts, which are provided by Pasco County. Pasco County does sort of rolling trip counts across the county on a variety of different roads. And they don't do some of the minor roads very frequently. And so what we found was that last time I was here, we had noted that the latest data for Washington Street was from late April of 2020. But Pasco County Traffic Engineering informed me that those were typos and that the actual dates were April of 2017. So those would not have been pandemic era counts, but they are the latest that are available. So from US 19 to Sunglow, you have about 257 trips in the PM peak hour. On Pine Hill Road to Lorenzen Street, about 444 trips was observed. And then on Broadway Avenue to Kenwood Avenue was 254. So if you go down to the bottom where it says the PUD development traffic, based on the trip generation manual from the Institute of Traffic Engineers, a project with the 126 units of the type of dwellings that's proposed would generate 92 PM peak hour trips. And then there's some little extra data there. 51 of those trips would be entering the development, and 41 trips would be exiting the development during that PM peak hour. So let's go to the next one. So before I had found out that the 2020 information was actually 2017, I did go back to look at what was older than that, so you can see those in black. So in 2011 and 2009, and those were the locations, because of course they don't line up. Now they're all staggered all over the place, but it took me a little time, but I got it put together so you could just get a sense of what the counts are at the different locations and the different times. But if you skip down to the bottom where you see the bar, and this is really the level of service analysis. You have a maximum capacity of 1,700 trips. You have your current trips, so I took the worst case, which is right there between Pine Hill and Lorenzen, which is 444 trips. Add the 92 trips from the development, and you end up with 1,164. That's your remaining capacity that would be for, say, additional development that comes down the road. So you're very far away from reaching the point when you would be exceeding your level of service standards at 1,700 trips. So it passes the test. So in conjunction with the PUD development plan, there are conditions of approval, which you have full versions of within your packet. So what we do is we say, well, because there are some requests, some negotiations, so to speak, for some of the standards, we want to make sure that certain things happen. One of the things was that, this is going to be a rental community, so it'll be under one owner. That responsible entity will maintain and be responsible for this site and not the city. And it also needs to be an entity that's acceptable to the city. The site permit must commence within 180 days, and if not, the rezoning reverts back from PUD to R3 and C1, which exists today. Wetland protection must meet all of Southwest Florida Water Management District permit requirements. For neighborhood compatibility, there is to be a nice fence and landscaping along Washington Street, and that fencing and landscaping would need to be approved by City Council. So that, when the applicant is ready to present those plans, then that will be brought to the City Council. And then under land use, it indicates the maximum dwelling units, 126, that this property is going to be rented at market rates, and that there'll be certain development standards that I described below or before. And then under traffic circulation, the sidewalks on the site have already been constructed. Those are 4 feet, so we indicated what the minimum was. That they're going to reconstruct the sidewalk that's near the entrance of the site at Washington, just a little bit above Broadway, because there's a, do I put this here somewhere? Anyway, there's a S curve that makes it difficult if you're riding a bike in that area. They're also going to stripe that crossing for pedestrian safety. There'll be 2 functional ingress and egress access points. So the the secondary access point will be on Broadway Street to the south of the project. The Washington Street access will be gated, and it will have room for 4 stacked vehicles to enter the property. So we don't have, I'm sorry, three, sorry, thank you. So there'll be stacking room so they won't impede traffic as it goes by. The streets will be private, constructed to city standards, and then the police department will have access to those internal streets as they need to. For utilities, drainage, water service, and wastewater, must meet all applicable city and state standards. The system must tie into future reclaimed water service by the city, and there must be perpetual maintenance to all drainage easements. And I went through that kind of quick, but I figured you might not want to hear it, long form of it again. So, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. And the applicant is also here tonight, so we'll ask them if they have anything that they want to add. Thank you.
And you'd like to have this submitted to the record?
Yes, please.
Wonderful.
Yes, I have a question. You mentioned that it's already, Swift Mud has already been out there and everything's been done according to their...
I'll let the applicant speak to that because they probably have better information, but it's my understanding that because this has been, it's not the first time that this development has been addressed, that
Right.
they have a permit for the phase 1, but phase 2 is a new acquisition, so that just hasn't been fully permitted
Okay.
yet.
The last meeting, there was quite a bit of concern from the surrounding community about the stormwater and things like that. And so I was just curious if this most recent time that Swift Mud has been out there, is there any new recommendations they've made or changes they've made to what's existing there right now as far as drainage or anything?
I'll have to let the applicant, Josh Bradley, or the agent, to speak to that.
Okay.
But it's my understanding that from a level of service standard, the new development has to maintain all the water on its site in the post condition. And so that's what the Swift Mud permit, along with other things like, wetland buffers and things like that. But it's much more complicated. But from the level of service analysis that we did, that is a requirement. And then also we noted last time that because of the site development and the roads and whatnot that have been put in, there'll be no additional fill material or anything that would cause any flooding beyond, well, it would be beyond, but there wouldn't be anything new because those sites have already been prepared in conjunction with the prior development.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, thank you.
What about if there's problems on the property? Because up to this point, when there are issues on that property, if you contact the owner, phone calls are not returned. So how do we know that's going to change?
That'll have to be asked of the applicant, so I don't know that information.
Okay.
Thank you.
In that case, can we have the applicant come up next then? Wonderful. He's behind you.
I'm just gonna
Good evening, Carlos Yepes, Bel Air Development, 6654 78th Avenue, North Pinellas Park. First, let me address your question with regard to phone calls. Anytime I ever receive a call from Veronica, who usually tells the code enforcement, which is your police officer, tells her, she calls our office. Do I respond? Do you? Get the whatever issue is done, we'll take care of it, and has been. If it's a code enforcement issue.
Okay.
Okay, so if the property needs to be mowed, we'll schedule and mow it. But anyway, so it will be developed, it will be maintained, will be on site. Our management people will be on site to where the property is developed. Tammy did a great presentation. Glad to ask any questions with regards to the permit for the north parcel. We could, I'm sorry, it was for you. The current parcel has a permit from Swift Mud. Still has, I believe, a year to 2 years left. My drainage engineer is here, and we can tell you when this expires. But the new parcel, we have to create kind of a new storm system for that parcel and have his own permit. So that's what we're put it in a phase 2 as a separate permit, so we can go to work on phase 1 and finish what has been done, because this was gonna be 192 townhouses before.
Right.
And that's what was platted to do, and so now we're gonna cut it to 126.
Now, does the 126 include phase 2?
Yes, it does.
Okay, all right.
Be glad to answer any questions that you all may have.
Do you want to hear from the engineer regarding the stormwater management?
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand if it's, my impression was from the neighborhood is that there's still a stormwater issue there, and I'm wondering, are there anything different going to happen compared to what's there right now today to
Well,
mitigate some of that?
So,
If you could identify yourself to the record. Sure, please, right, yeah.
I'm sorry, Josh Bradley with Native Engineering. I'm the engineering consultant for Carlos. My address is 15903 Leatherleaf Lane in Land O'Lakes. Our SWIPMUD permit, I was just looking it up, expires August 2021, so next August. If SWIPMUD has been out to the site, it may have been during construction when we were doing the single-family development, and we had to redo not redo the line, but we had to set a wetland line for the north parcel, for the phase 2 parcel, so they may have been on site there. But SWIPMUD hasn't gone on site to check the construction because we haven't submitted to certify it, because it's obviously changing we didn't finish construction before. The problems that the neighbors brought up last time, we talked extensively afterwards as well. They're not caused by this site. I looked into this years ago, walked all around the site. I believe it's Orange Grove to the south. There's a ditch that goes under the road there. And that ditch is, if you follow it up as far, I can't go too far, be going into people's backyards, but it is not well maintained. That affects that entire wetland system to the east, and not just our site, but it goes up to the north and to the east, and that entire basin, all that rain falls there, stages up and goes out to the river through that ditch. If that ditch is blocked up in any way, it's going to stage everything back. So our responsibility is to make sure that this site, the runoff from the site before any construction ever happened, it runs off at the same rate, at the same volume, with certain storms, in particular the 25-year, 24-hour storm. So we run those calculations. Actually, another engineer did and permitted it. I came in, looked through his permitted information, re-permitted it the same thing previously, and those permits last for 5 years. And we just proved that the site doesn't send any more water off at any faster rate than it did before any development was there. So I'm not going to say that when we come in and construct the villas that all the drainage is going to go away. The drainage was an issue before this development, and it'll likely continue to be an issue. There are just plain low-lying development out there that when the river comes up and it rains hard, that's got nowhere to go. That's what stages up. There really needs to be a wholesale look at not only this city, but in Pasco County, especially near the coast, of how we can improve. But I would say 75 to 80% of it has to do with just poor upkeep of the different branches that go out to the river.
Okay.
So who's responsible for that actual ditch that you were talking about? Is that a Pasco County issue?
I believe it's Pasco
Is
County.
it?
That's
I'm
what
not
I was gonna
100%
say.
sure. Yep.
Yeah, it's not within our property.
Yeah, it's not.
Not our responsibility, it's Pasco County.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay.
I guess the next one's for Dallas. Dallas is the compared to what they had approved prior, they're actually, by reducing the amount of units, it's probably less pervious, right? There's more non-pervious spots on it, right?
Correct.
So they should be able to manage their water
Yeah.
on the site directly because of that fact.
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna come back and answer that question right now.
Yes, that is true. So the original permit had 200 some odd units, large buildings. Was that 192?
Yeah, 192.
Larger buildings, parking lots, all the parking's been removed. The larger buildings are obviously replaced by smaller buildings and driveways. There is less impervious area than what was originally permitted. We didn't change the size of the pond or the size of the weirs. Water just came out slower. So I guess there is an improvement to the way it was supposed to be, not necessarily an improvement on where it is now.
Right.
I also want to say that we have to put We have to note in our plans, it has to be constructed this way, that all roof runoff is routed into the system. It can't just go off to the side of the house and let it go in the back of the wetlands. It's got to be routed through drains onto the sidewalk, or onto the driveways, or into the front yard, and the front yards are sloped towards the road, picked up by the road. All the road's going to go into that pond in the center, where it's treated and attenuated before sent off. So,
Okay. Ms. Laurie, any questions?
Okay.
Randy?
No.
Okay. Thank
Okay. At this time, I'd like to hear from the, do we have people, Sal, for public? Although there's really not a lot of people here, I'll just open it up, it's fine.
I've got no sound in.
That's all right, we have 6 people here, so. Does anybody from the public like to speak? And at this time, I'll entertain. Please, state your name for the record, please.
Kenneth Burke, Washington Street. I have a little issue with the traffic alone. Anybody in their right mind really knows that you've got 2 cars per household. If that's a family-oriented development, there's 2 cars per household. That's over 250 cars right there. The trips alone, I work at home. I see the cars going up and down Washington Street. The bus traffic alone is what they're saying, period. The fix that the city did on that road last year with the resurfacing, it's already going apart. The road is not designed for the heavy traffic. You got semis going through there. That road, there's no way it can be weighted for those semis going through there and the amount of bus traffic. You're going to destroy your traffic. The road will be destroyed. The dips are already coming back. And as far as the runoff goes, you can do all the engineering you want, but the more concrete you put, there's nowhere for the water to go. It's going to come back on Washington Street. It already does, and it already has since the city did their fix on the road. I get more drainage in front of my house now than I did prior. So the more concrete and the more construction you put up there, the water is not going to, it's going to go back onto the Washington Street no matter what. And the amount of traffic is nothing compared to what those surveys said. Not even close. So I would urge the city not to deal with the variances right now, put it off. Variances are not good for the city. The variances are only good for the developer. They are not in our favor whatsoever as far as water, sewage, anything. So I urge the city not to consider these variances at this time. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Marvin Jump, I live on Washington Street. I have a concern about what the property is going to be used for. On the original plans, it has rental, multifamily, or up to the developer. It shouldn't be up to the developer. We should know what's going in there at the beginning. And I've heard tonight it's going to be rentals. I lived in Gulf Harbors. When they developed a new section, when they built a couple of new houses, one gentleman bought one lot and built a house, and it goes to weekly rentals, and 99% were from New York. They'd be partying 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. It was a rental. I'd hate to think that that's going to turn into a nice-looking, large motel. That's my only concern, is the use. I'm sure they're going to do a beautiful thing at the beginning, but how's it going to be handled? And it could start out nice, but turn into a motel. That's my concern. Other than that, it's up to you folks. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Would the applicant like to reply regarding the question regarding usage? I guess short term, identify and kind of tell us what kind of rental usage you're going to use.
Sure, the intent is for yearly rentals here.
Okay.
We will have a minimum of 7 months.
Okay.
Because otherwise you have to charge sales tax on your rentals. So it's a year, the design for the product is a yearly rental program.
So no short-term rentals.
No short-term rentals.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. All right. Sir.
I'm Mike Osborne. My address is 4424 First Avenue North. Clinical director for Operation PAR. We have property on 7720 Washington Street. We have 2 programs there. Concern is putting up a fence around the property. We have a lot of people coming, individuals, early morning hours. Could be distracting, disrupting for residents. We're a nonprofit organization, so we provide a service to the community. And the ask is a fence around the property to prevent any complaints that may happen. Kind of a
So you want to get in front of the complaints before they do happen?
Correct.
Understood. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe, Dallas, they're responsible for putting fencing around the property.
Yeah,
correct?
the plan, I believe, is to show a permanent fence around the property.
Okay, so that's already,
The-
that's been addressed?
Upper majority, probably towards the wetlands won't be fenced, but the Washington, Broadway, that area should be.
Okay. Ms. Burke?
On the display up there, it just said fence along Washington Street. It didn't say, it's not on this screen. But a couple of them back, that's all it said was Washington. So, and I was gonna ask, it should be down Broadway on the other side too.
I know that, do you want to address that, or would you like to address that?
I'll address the fence. We're going to fence along Washington and go back east as far as we can go. Some areas there is a big dip and a lot of overgrown vegetation that we want to preserve.
Both on the north and south side?
On the north and the south side, correct. We want to try to preserve it because it's actually very pretty in the back. We want to preserve as much as we can, so we're going to bring PVC fences on the north side and on the south side and on the west side. On the east side is all wetlands, so there's nothing to do.
After that?
Yeah, can I ask something else
Sure.
before you sit down? Before you sit down, last time we were talking about the water, and I was asking about the water usage, if you included the irrigation water. And you said, I know, you said you were gonna put in the pipes for future reclaimed water, which is no such thing right now.
Correct.
So, then you brought up wells.
Yes.
Wells is a big concern,
Well,
because our well field is right back behind there.
I understand. And we thought we addressed it the last time, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna do only for irrigation wells. We don't have any drinking water wells. Our irrigation wells are not as deep as a drinking water well. And as you know, an irrigation well pumps the water out and the water actually goes back in the ground because it just sits in the ground. Typically for your landscaping, you're not gonna irrigate the roads. So the water goes back in the ground. So the only thing that you're gonna miss is the evaporation in those wells. SwiftMat has a calculation to allow how far you put a well from another. We're restricted. We gotta show the flows, how much water is gonna be pumped. And they regulate that, and they're the ones giving us the permits for, as we apply. We haven't applied yet, but we will. Because we will set up a sprinkler system that can connect to your reclaim system when you bring it in. So at that point, we'll turn the wells off and go to reclaim, because it's obviously.
Did somebody tell you that they were gonna bring in reclaimed water? Because that's nothing we know about.
Well, the city was trying to do a grant about 3 years ago.
Right.
To bring the reclaimed water, which was, I believe, 1,800 feet away, or 2,000 feet away, and that grant fell through. So
Right.
we're still gonna do a sprinkler system to connect to it whenever it's possible. So if they bring it, we will be stupid not to connect. My understanding was that it was gonna come down Washington Avenue, Washington Street, if the city got the grant to bring it in.
Right, I understand that. You keep saying to connect it, and I know there aren't any plans for that. That's why
Well, but
I wondered if someone had said that to you, that's coming back.
Well, there was a plan about 3 years ago, three or 4 years ago, when they were trying to get the grant to do that. They never got it.
Right.
So we have to irrigate our grass, so we're gonna have to do a sprinkler system, but the sprinkler system will have the ability to be disconnected and connected to the reclaimed water system when it comes in.
Okay.
Okay,
Any other
thank you.
questions?
I don't have any questions. Dallas?
As far as the wells go, studies have to be done. They provide the city that information before they can put them in anyway. And if it does show that it's going to affect the city wells and a well field, we can deny them. So it's not a slam dunk to putting wells out there.
Right.
May go from putting 4 to having to put 2 in, which would be further to the west or what have you. We just got to wait for the study paperwork to come in.
Yeah, because that's a concern, because it could affect our wells, our quality, our quantity, our pressure, our everything else, and it's too close to our well fields. So I think the only issues that people are still really talking about are the flooding and the traffic, the wells, which if the city has to approve, that's a different story.
Sure.
But the traffic is still a problem, because I don't think anybody believes those numbers. They might have come from a book, but they came from 3 years ago, and there is a lot of traffic on Washington Street. Already, residents sometimes have trouble getting out of their own driveways. That's how much traffic there is already on Washington Street. You might sit and wait for over 5 minutes to get out of your own driveway right now.
Okay. Any other comments or from the board? I'm going to close to the public at this time. Any other comments or questions from the board?
The only thing
Either staff or the applicant?
The only thing I think I can suggest as far as the traffic, if there's concerns about that, is the neighborhood would have to be willing to hire their own traffic, pay for their own traffic count, and then if we still go ahead and approve it here, and then bring it before city council and show them their updated information or something. Because I think the numbers, as far as it look like they went by the correct procedure. They have to, you can't just say pick any old day and whatever time or something. They have to have a regimented way of going about those counts, so it's all done fairly and uniformly everywhere. But that'd be the only thing. If the neighborhood really feels that strongly about it, I would suggest they hire I guess to be an engineering company, and they would have to do an independent count. Yeah.
Absolutely, please.
So I just want, Tammy Verona Consulting. I just wanted to bring to everybody's attention that the city does have a proportionate fair share impact fee program. So there really isn't a provision to stop a development unless, as long as they're paying for their way. Now, if there's a fix, if there's something that you think that, and this is a really low level of traffic, this is a small development, it's only 92 peak hour traffic, so it's very small. But if there was like something like a deceleration lane, which I think they already have one at their site going, well, with the stacking anyway, it may not be this development that's causing problems. Maybe there's some other point in the system that's causing things to back up or wherever, but as far as what this property is generating, it's relatively minimal as in terms of development. And also the city doesn't really have a provision where you can deny a development because you can, in essence, pay and go. Now the city is responsible for maintaining its overall level of service standard across the board, and so that's where you just need to be thinking about, everything that's growing, how it's all working together within your system, and what sort of fixes might need to take place. I don't live on Washington Street. I can tell what the numbers say, but for instance, like on US 19, there's DOT's working with the city, the county works with the city. They all are making sure that things are flowing, and that's the important thing. But as you said, if you wanted to have additional data that was put into the mix, then that might be something that they could use to show at least that what they perceive is true.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Laura, you have any comments?
Yeah. I know we're just an advisory board, it would be up to council if this is approved, but, and it looks beautiful, but my concern is that we've been burned before, and once it's approved, they're not obligated to keep it that way. And we've seen that happen over and over, so I'm kind of concerned about that. And I got several calls from citizens that said they want to see single-family homes in that area. So I think there's going to be a lot of people showing up at the council meeting, just saying. That's it.
Okay. I'll make a comment as well. I have been fortunate to sit in this seat for many years, and I have seen this particular parcel come across this board multiple times. I will tell you, in my personal opinion, that although, especially being somebody in the real estate business, I would love to see single-family homes, but I understand the need for affordable housing. And I think that this fits the affordable housing. In addition to that fact, we are an advisory board to the council. Council makes decisions, we do not make decisions. But at the same time, it's our job to make sure that we go through and see something and help advise council to make sure that they make an educated decision based off of what we see. That being said, and staff would be the one that would be responsible to answer this question, by granting this PUD, they're actually reducing the amount that they could get as far as building is concerned based off what the actual usage of the property is currently. Is that correct? So they're actually reducing the impact in doing so. He could walk in the door, go to council, or go to the building department and say, this is my parcel, this is what I've done, what am I allowed to build here? And then Dallas and Veronica come through and say, you're allowed to build 245 units, and he could just build it and we can't say anything about it. It's better for us to work with them to go ahead and get what we need. I understand the need for the concern of Washington Avenue. To me, it's a racetrack. It's out of control. So there's things that can be done, deceleration lanes, stuff like that, maybe things to work together. In regards to what Lori said, yes, we have been burned in the past. But as Jim said earlier, we have the ability to make recommendations, and one of the things we can do with our recommendations is we can approve with provisos. We can make our recommendations, and we say, yes, we agree that it's a good idea to do this, but we're under these following circumstances. And we do that when you make your motion accordingly. Council will hear that. But you're right. Do I think this place is going to be packed for council? Absolutely. So, but that's just my 2 cents. Any other comments, questions from? Do I have a motion, or you want to discuss what your thoughts are regarding how to proceed?
Would everybody want to say their recommendations so we can put a motion together?
I'd like to hear that. You're new. You want to start?
No.
Okay. All right. You would recommend approval based on what? What would you like to see or be addressed?
Do what I want. I just want to make sure that they can't change the design of it.
Well, that's nothing we can control from that standpoint.
Now, once the PUD that they come in with, their plan if it's approved, they're stuck to that plan. They can't come in and all of a sudden say, we're going to go from 126 total to 160. It has to come back through the whole process all over again. And one of the other things to think about too with the traffic currently on Washington, Grand Boulevard's closed.
Right.
They're shifting everything onto Washington to get out of Newport Richey down through here. Once that opens back up, you may see some lighter traffic, but not a whole lot.
Sure.
But they're routing a lot of that around and back to
There's
down by you
always
guys.
a lot of traffic on
Oh, I know
Washington,
there
though.
is.
And don't think that this won't affect Grand anyway, because
Oh, it's gonna affect
Grand and Washington are the two through streets.
Yeah.
So it'll affect both of them.
But this, right now, we're getting everybody that usually would use Grand is currently either running out to 19 or coming down Washington, which way. So is this going to impact the area with traffic? Certainly.
Of course.
It's going to. There's no way around it.
You started. Okay, I'll move on. Randy, you have any?
Well, can we add a provision that we would like to see some mitigation of traffic on Washington? I don't know how to be more specific than that.
How we actually address that.
But
Is the deceleration lane already listed in there? It's already part of that, correct? They have a turn.
I think that you'd have to find out what the problem was on Washington Street. But I think if you're saying it's just traffic,
Right.
the
Too
numbers
vague.
really aren't supporting that. If there's a bottleneck, like if there's some turning movement that's causing people to stack up and not be able to get out, or?
Well, turning movement heading south, turning left into that would definitely be an issue. It would stack traffic dramatically without some kind of.
I mean, I know that comes from a traffic study, and I know that's how they do that.
The traffic counts.
The traffic, but if you realistically think about it, and like someone mentioned, you know, if just the people in there had 2 cars, then you throw in delivery drivers, then you throw in school buses, then you throw in maintenance workers, there's a lot more cars than just the people that live there.
Yeah, because
to service that community. It's not just the people that live there. It's the people that are coming to visit them. It's UPS and Amazon and everybody else stopping and maintenance workers.
But they're responsible for the dwelling units that they're building, and not necessarily the postman that comes there, or.
No, but
I mean, those are sort of urban support. They're spread
Sure.
across our entire community. So to say that, you know, one development has to bear that responsibility is, I mean.
No, but it's additional, is what I'm saying. I'm not throwing everything on that community. I'm just saying that's that many more deliveries, that's that many more maintenance workers, that's that many more visitors, that's that many more school buses. Is it a lot for that one subdivision? No, but if you throw it on top of everything else, then it becomes a concern.
Yeah, I just don't have the data to respond to. I mean, I don't, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know how to answer that question. I don't know how to make that a proviso because we don't know how to answer that question.
Right. Well, I think the concerns about other involved traffic, I think that's must be built into these formulas they come up with. Traffic, it's not the only neighborhood that has plumbers that come into the
Sure,
neighborhood, so
of course.
it's expected, and I think it would have been included in those considerations of the traffic. So,
But, you know, if there was a pinpointed problem that, you know, other than that there's a lot of traffic, because the numbers don't bear that out. There seems to be capacity on Washington Street. Now we look at the peak hour, that seems to be, you know, across the board, the busiest time, you know, everywhere. You know, people are coming home from work. So that's why they look at that worst case. That's why they call it the PM peak. It's the peak hour. So, you know, granted, the traffic counts were from 2017, but has there been something additional added to development in the area that would impose more traffic on Washington Street?
Can I ask a question?
And then does it rise to the level of getting to that level of service D capacity? Because there seems to be like 1,100 or so additional trips. So this is just kind of an extra chip that gets you, it just increases those numbers a little bit. There seems to be a lot of capacity after this development would be proposed or be built.
I have a question for the building department. Did we find out that after Avila Bay went in, that there was an increase in traffic and parking problems there? Because wasn't it initially thought at Avila Bay there would be so many cars, and it turned out that that was not true, and it was excess of what was expected? Is there not problems over there right now?
There are issues there. We don't have a follow-on traffic study.
Are the issues from traffic, or the issues from parking?
Parking is the main issue there.
So parking is a non-issue at this community because it's not, right, that's not the issue here.
Not the issue.
All right.
Not now, but it wasn't a problem at Avila Bay either initially, because they said so many cars would be there.
Right.
And that ended up not being the case. So they can say however many cars are going to be here, and that cannot also be the case.
Right. Lori?
Can you do a motion to consider the resolution to approve?
Consider on what grounds? What do you mean by consider?
Consider after reviewing traffic concerns and water well capacity concerns.
Well, that takes that out of that's not in our board's hands. That's something that we can make part of your motion for council to consider, not for us to consider.
Right.
Jim, am I correct? Okay, perfect. I'd love to hear that.
You could put provisos. Can you hear me?
Yep.
You could put provisos on your recommendation, okay, which would be something that you would require of the builder to do for your approval.
Right.
Okay. So you could vote to say no, but if you say yes, you can put provisos, such as you talked about a fence here, just so you understand. Anything that's said here, I'm going to do something, it has no legal effect.
Correct.
Okay, as you know. The only thing that'll have legal effect is Exhibit B. Those are conditions of approval, which I presume you'll make as part of your motion if you say yes. Number
Right.
11 talks about fences. What was said doesn't match number 11. So I presume if someone was going to make a motion, I'm just trying to help you here, that would be more specific,
Correct.
right?
Inclusive
So
of
any other, so
such
that's a
stuff.
long way to explain to you, I presume, so, do whatever you like. But with regard to your recommendation, I can't see how your recommendation could be, well, we would approve this, but if you make them do a traffic study and you like it, I mean, that kind of recommendation you can't make the council. You're either approving this with provisos or denying it.
Right.
Yes, the
Yes.
answer is no,
The answer's
right?
no.
I can try to explain to you why, and also, there's something else that's been said that I kind of sense that you want to take care of, but not to forget that if a motion is made, approve. Deny, or not to deny, but the recommendation not to.
Do you mind if I add something just?
Sure, please.
Josh Bradley again with Native Engineering. What gets lost sometimes is I understand 126 units with 2 cars at each unit, that's 240. And you're thinking about all that traffic, that would mean that all 240 cars would leave and come back at the same time. That's not how it happens. So the reason why we get, through, and this is many studies across the country. It's a book, 2 books this big with a bunch of different uses. How we get to that 92 number is from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Not everybody comes home at that time. Not everybody goes back out. 51 cars coming in, I believe is what it said. 51 coming in, 41 leaving in the PM peak hour. That is a car every just over 2 minutes coming in. 1 car on that road every 2 minutes. So when we say our development is a drop in the hat, it is truly a drop in the hat. Now, we're not taking away traffic, which is what everybody would like to hear.
Sure.
Development brings traffic, but we truly are a drop in the hat. And that's how you get 92 trips when you have 126 units. Because everybody goes to work the same, not everybody goes to work the same days. The coming and going, it's a national thing that is brought to us, not out here at this location. What are 126 units? I understand that not everything is built equally, but that is what we have to go by, and that's what we design around, and that's what cities and municipalities, put in laws and rules around. That's how we get to the 92 number. It's not crazy. Usually when you see it's wrong, it's usually wrong 10 cars one way or another. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you.
May I say something?
Please.
I think a point we're missing here, and I think you mentioned it, is we could walk in here today and build 240 units, period. I have 500 cars. We're cutting it down. We're bringing down a much less impact to the neighborhood by building what we're building. So I think this is an improvement to what could happen here. And this is an opportunity to restrict us to this plan. Once you give us this approval, we can't deviate. We have to live up to these conditions. We have to stay within that plan. We can't go build 150 units. We can build 1 unit more. 126, that's it.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a question. So, no, just for the general purpose. So what we're discussing and what we want to approve or not approve tonight is just whether to change the zoning, is that right? We're not. Is the zoning change the only thing that we would be
The
voting
request
on?
tonight is just to change the zoning. So after this zoning, if it's approved, then they'll have to take a site plan to the city, and they'll get into really the detailed engineering of all those things that go on in a site plan stage. This is just the zoning, but because it's a planned unit development, it comes with a plan and it comes with a set of conditions.
Right.
So that way, as the applicant said, it's more defined as to what they can do, as opposed to today, they could come in by right and to submit a site plan with a certain number of lots and a certain number of units, and it could be more. It could be higher traffic levels
Right.
without
No
an approval.
fencing, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to put into the record then for conditions, when they talked about the fence, that the fence goes all the way
So
around.
that would be a proviso, that would be one of the things you want.
Yes, that would be
So
one of the things,
you would like a
because
fence on,
that's not what the display said.
correct.
It just said fence on Washington.
You're suggesting a fence on the eastern boundary, the north,
And south.
north-south boundary plus the west boundary.
Right, and PAR came in specifically to say they wanted a fence
Sure.
so they possibly wouldn't have problems, which was another concern from the neighborhood, is that they are gearing toward families with children and putting it next to the meth clinic. And obviously that is a concern to PAR too,
Sure.
or they wouldn't have showed up and said something. So it is a concern, and it is a concern not just there, but all the way down Washington Street, because there's needles and all kinds of things, people and needles and trash and all kinds of things up and down Washington Street. So if you're gearing toward children, then there have to be conditions that somebody is out there cleaning that up continuously.
That fence will help with that issue, obviously, right? That's a big thing. Lori?
I'm not used to it.
Okay, so that being said, we've mentioned the fence, right? That's the main one we're talking about. Is there anything?
Traffic study. I don't play the updated traffic study.
Well,
Okay.
that's not, I really didn't have in mind for the city to pay for more traffic
Right,
study.
that's what you're requesting, pretty much there, from that
Yeah.
standpoint.
But we're requesting of the builder.
No, of the
So-
neighborhood.
So that's.
If anybody
Okay.
has objecting to it.
He's already has, because based on the size of the property he has the ability to build more units already.
Okay, I see.
So he wouldn't have to provide that. So I ask for that. We're not working together. You know what I mean? I understand what you guys are worried about there. So fence is the main one I keep hearing. Obviously, he's going to take care of the, if I understand correctly, sidewalks was on that, correct? All right, because that's
Fence, sidewalks, and then,
Sidewalks.
and someone brought up with the traffic, if they're gonna stack 3 back, how far back is that gonna come? Is that gonna come out into the street? Because that will affect the traffic.
right. That's on the drawing here, right?
Right. So are they gonna be on the property with the 3 stacked, or are they gonna be out partially onto
On
Washington?
the
Be off
physical
the-
property.
off the
correct.
road.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
May I address that?
Sure, please.
Yeah, we designed it to hold our cars within our property,
Okay.
to the gate. The other, with regards to your fence, if you look on the south side,
Right there.
yes, go to the right, the fence, you physically have to stop the fence there, because you can't go any more than that, right there. And that's our intention, to go right there. On the north side, we want to go around, all the way to the methadone clinic, around the property, all the way to the front, to the wetlands on the top.
All the way past phase 2.
Yes, that's what we want to do, because that's really how far you can go, because we're not allowed to go into the wetlands. Yeah. To the wetland line.
Right.
To the dark, basically the dark area, right there.
Right.
Yeah, to right there, yeah, we have to stay 20 feet away from there, yes.
And you're managing your own traffic
Right,
here.
yes, we are, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That isn't a full turn lane there, as you're coming up.
Well, you have a
And it's not a full acceleration lane there.
You have a
Is there any way to expand that to make that wider?
You want to stack, if the cars are getting off Washington coming to the property, there's already a deceleration lane going in there. We're making it wider going into our property, and we have enough distance from the right-of-way to the actual gate. So, and if the gate is closed, they can also turn around and come back.
Right, but that acceleration and deceleration lane, those aren't full lanes.
They're already built, they're there.
But they're not full traffic lanes, correct?
Well,
They'll stick over into traffic onto Washington Street.
No,
If your vehicle's
you,
in-
you can be there and someone can pass you today. On the deceleration lane coming in, there is one already built there today.
I know, I've seen it. I don't think it's a full traffic lane,
Well,
is
it's,
it?
it's not a US 19 turn lane, but it's
It's not a
designed-
Washington Street
No, well,
lane,
I mean,
is it?
it's for this type of development, it's more than ample.
Okay.
So we're going back to the fence, to make it clear, we will fence along the south, all Washington Street, and all the way around back to the wetlands.
What kind of fence is that gonna be?
We will have a PVC fence, 6 foot,
White PVC fence?
white, green,
Is somebody gonna come out and clean that?
well, we'll have people to clean it up, you know?
I'm asking this because there have been problems on that property before.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just you calling her. It's, I know that neighbors have called from that neighborhood and called your office and never got a return phone call.
Well, I tell you.
And I do know that people down Washington or down Broadway are not gonna wanna sit and look at a dirty fence like they look currently at a field all overgrown.
We wouldn't want to have a dirty fence if we have a $25 million investment here.
I
Well,
understand
we-
that, but all I'm saying is past practice makes you wonder what future practice is gonna be. And these are questions that people have asked me, and so I'm here asking you.
Okay.
Is there gonna be a difference in me? I realize you're gonna have a lot more money put into it than when it's just a field.
We're gonna have people on site. We're gonna have management on site. It's not like we're an hour
Okay.
an hour and 15 minutes from here, but.
I'm not trying to be combative. What I'm trying to find is answers.
No,
So
we
the
will have.
on-site, your on-site management, will they actually be, is there someone living on site, a resident on site?
It's an option to the manager to live on site, not necessarily mandatory. You can't make it mandatory.
Sure, of course.
But they will be on at the office every day. So if something goes on, we want to know. So it will be much more intense than what it is now. Now it's just an abandoned project, really is what it is.
Sure.
That
I
we're picking
understand
it up
that.
and making something out of it. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Questions? We've all voiced our concerns, at least once. I know I've said mine twice at least.
I'll make a motion to approve the project as requested, the zoning change with provision that fencing is included in the north, west, and south borders of the property.
Okay. Do I have a second or discussion? Please.
How quickly we forget, does that motion include the Exhibit B provisos also?
Yes.
Well, the motion wasn't made that way.
Right. No, I agree. I
Okay.
agree.
And may I also suggest, with regards to the specifics of the motion, okay, with regard to your fence, as you can see what's in here, it says up to a 6-foot fence, okay? So that could be a 1-foot fence is what your motion is saying. So do you want a 5-foot
Okay.
fence, a 6-foot fence, an opaque fence, right?
Okay.
So if you could be a little more specific, that would make it easier for the council.
6 foot. And what's the other?
So you move to
The-
approve with the Exhibit B provisos as well as a fence?
And then
Be a little more specific and make it
what kind of fence?
Exhibit B as in boy?
Correct.
decent boy, yes.
Okay. All right, I'd like to scratch the original motion and make a new motion to accept the zoning change from R3 multiple family residential and a C1 community commercial to PUD planned unit development for the property located at 7616 Washington Street. And I'd like to add a provision that fencing, 6-foot fencing is included in the north, west, and south borders of the property. And this also includes approval of Exhibit B.
Perfect. Do I have a second or do I have any discussion regarding said motion?
I'd like to say at least a 6-foot high fence.
I just said 6
You
foot.
said 6.
said
at-
six.
Yeah,
I just
at
said
least 6 foot, if not higher.
Okay.
Did we need to add sidewalks on that, anything about sidewalks
No, that's already part of part of their plan. That's why we asked staff that question already. She asked if sidewalks were included in that, and that was already in staff's original.
Yeah, there'll be sidewalks are part of the plan here, but just so we understand this, okay, this site plan is just a preliminary site plan, is how I refer to it. They'll
Correct.
actually provide another site plan, but that site plan, okay, is not at the discretion anymore of Mr. Foss, as long as that site plan meets the basic parameters of what you're agreeing to hear today. He's not going to be able to tell him, you got to do this, you got to do that. You understand me? As long as they produce a site plan. So this reliance upon a future site plan doesn't get you anywhere. All right, you're putting for giving the variances here today and for approving this because this is something you want. This is your opportunity to pick any other things. Now, I'm not saying you should or you shouldn't, but I don't think you should rely upon any future site plan now.
That being said, that the conditions of PUD is inclusive of a sidewalk.
That's absolutely correct. Inclusive of sidewalk, how wide it is, and things
Right.
like that, all that's, yes.
already
So in other words, they can't come in without a sidewalk, and
Correct.
he's gonna make them put a sidewalk in. He's gonna make them have pipes in a street and everything like that. So if there is anything else, not that I'm thinking there is, Mr. Stout, your motion's fine, it's just that this is your opportunity.
So minimum of 6-foot fence.
So is that we're modifying it to include a minimum of a 6-foot fence? Perfect, okay. Do you have any other discussion or a second or anything else?
Do I have to read it again?
I think you're fine.
Your motion's good, Mr.
Quit
Stout.
lying in my head. Do I read it again?
No, you're fine, you're fine. The motion's fine. So we have a motion on the floor.
Okay.
Motion's for approval with the provisos as stated, including the Exhibit B, with in addition to a minimum of a 6-foot tall fence on the northwest and south borders of the property. So I have a minimum motion on the floor. I will entertain anything else.
Just that it says, oh, I guess we should add solid fence in to make sure, just to make sure.
You're looking for a second, right?
Yeah, I'm looking for a second. Because I don't think do I have a second? Or do we want to scratch that one and do it differently? Ms. Burke, would you like to do a new motion and add that verbiage?
No.
Okay. Nobody? Okay. Well, that motion's going to fail then. And then I will need another motion to move forward, either move forward with an approval with provisos, a denial, or dismissal. So, any other questions we can ask to help kind of clarify for you guys?
May I ask a question?
Please. Normally when I close to the public, no, but at this point, absolutely. We need a little help moving along here.
Marvin Jump, Washington Street.
Sure.
I've got a concern on the sidewalk. I live one lot down from the Met Clinic.
Okay?
And the lady's correct. The garbage that's dumped there, they start going in that clinic 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And there's some scary looking people walking up and down that sidewalk. But they need the fence to protect their property. But who is going to clean the sidewalk and the grass? Is that going to be their responsibility to cut that grass? Or is that still going to be maintained by Port Richey? Because there's a lot of nasty stuff thrown out there, but that sidewalk has a lot of traffic, people walking back and forth to the Met Clinic, like I said, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. So who will maintain that up to the wall?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. You want to address that?
That area from the fence to the street is the right-of-way, which should be maintained by the city. We're responsible for that.
From
Not
the fence to the
the
street.
fence to the street, not the property owner. The property owner's has the fence. He has to maintain his fence.
From the fence internal?
Fence internal.
Correct. as well as the the outside of the fence.
Yep.
I have another question about that fence. Where will the fence sit? No, that's not really been addressed.
We will set the fence right along, just close to the property line. We want to put some landscaping on the outside of the fence, so it looks pretty.
If you do that, then the city will be.
No, it'll be on our property.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're going to put the fence inside your property line?
Yeah, the fence will be on our property for sure, yes. Yeah,
So
we
how
can't put-
far back from the sidewalk are you going to put the fence? Do you know where the property line is? I don't.
Well, I don't have a survey here, but I can tell you that we will have the fence on our property for sure. We'll be responsible 100% for the fence. Whatever happens to the fence.
Yeah, that's never been mentioned, where the fence actually will be.
Okay. Yeah, the property line, you see where the power poles are? It's about where the property line is.
So you're going to set the fence inside the power poles?
Yeah, I can't set it any farther to the west because it'd be on the city property. I can't do that. I'm not allowed to do that. So it has to be within our property, the fence. But I can tell you that the landscaping that's going to be in the front, we're not going to wait for the city to cut it. We're going to cut it.
Right, of course.
I mean, we're not going to wait for the city to come and cut the grass once a month or once every 3 months. Because if we're going to maintain our community, we want to make it look pretty. We will probably just go ahead and cut it.
Can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
Do I remember that you had said we'll be investing approximately $25 million in this project?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so if you invest that much money in this property, would it be to your best interest to keep the amount of this drug traffic or however you want to call it along that street to a minimum? It seemed like it would be to your.
Absolutely.
You would want to do
we
something
have
about
the
it.
clinic right here, don't we? Are you with the clinic? Okay. They're the ones creating the problem.
Right.
So we should enforce
Right.
to clean the problem. Everybody seems to be pretty tired
Right.
of that.
I think, so would it be in your best interest?
We're going to do
right,
whatever it takes to do
that
on our
you can.
property and in front of our property, for sure. But I can't go to his property and clean up something, because that's not my job.
No, that's all in front of your
Yeah.
current property
Right,
now.
right.
So-
That's where it is.
I'm only bringing that up, just that I think specifically for that problem,
Mm-hmm.
this development is going to help reduce that problem
It'll help
rather than
reduce
I
add
hope so.
to it.
I hope so, and that's the other reason for the fence. We want to make sure that we keep everybody out.
Right.
Yeah, keep your residents safe.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, as you said it, there was some very undesirable people coming over there, and I think once this is developed, that will help better than what is there. We have found a number of their customers sleeping on our property,
That's true.
Right.
setting up camp. We come in and kick them out, they come back in, and we can't be there every day. So, yeah, I think the development of this is going to help. It's going to clean up the area. We're going to build less than we're entitled to. I think it'd be a great improvement for the area.
Right.
Thank you.
Yep.
So do you have any other motions then? Randy, you want to
I know
you want
you
to
like-
modify your motion?
What happened if there's no motion, or no separate vote?
Appreciate that.
Dives on the
Your choices are, if you don't get a motion to recommend approval to the council, then someone probably would make a motion not to, recommend denial. It's not dismissal, but recommend denial. Now, if that's a split, if that's a 2-2 vote on denial or something, then that's what you report to the council. So if you want to ask if anybody wants to have a recommendation for denial, otherwise it'll go through as not being approved. So you might as well call for that motion.
Okay. Do I have a motion for denial? Do I have another motion for approval with provisos? Those are our two choices. Go ahead, Randy. You have the floor.
I haven't heard any other suggestions for any provisos other than the fence, so I don't know how else to.
Well, I guess needs to be clarification on the fence is the biggest issue we have. What type of
Sure.
fence it is, the height of the fence, and the
Setback.
setback requirements of the fence.
Oh, just,
To verify that.
That's a lot to remember,
Yes.
Randy.
well, I think this
So she's gonna interject real
So
quick.
that's gonna be with it.
Tammy Vrana Consulting. Just keep in mind that this fence needs to go to your city council for all, like when they have a design set up with like location,
Right.
landscaping, materials, height, posts, all those things will go to your city council and they will bless it. That's a requirement in the conditions of approval. I mean, if you want to put what you would like to see, that's certainly acceptable. And also let you know too that I think that your standards are, typically in communities, you don't want anything more than a 6-foot fence because then it starts to not look so good. So usually that's why we put up to, because we were trying to like moderate it that way. So but if you want to say a 6-foot fence,
You gotta remember, they're gonna put a clubhouse right on Washington Street also. So
it's
maybe.
a single story, right? Single story?
Yes.
Yeah. It won't be ugly. Oh. So, okay, thanks.
Do you have a comment?
Underneath the exhibit they give you for the fence, it reads, said fencing shall not exceed 6 feet in height, except the decorative columns or other architectural features that do not exceed 1 foot above. So they can go 7 foot with a column copper or something like that. They're saying they're putting a 6-foot fence in.
And
So you're
the
six-
Up to
it's,
6 foot, so does that mean it could be a 4 foot?
Should not exceed 6 foot.
right.
That's right, that was
But
my point.
general-
Not
general
to
rule-
exceed means it could be a half a foot.
Half a foot.
That's what I said, right?
Typically, you're gonna
Right.
see,
Right.
there's also, I'd have to see if our zoning code states it or not, but between residential and commercial, there's also a requirement on heights on that too. that may be
Just so
that
you
commercial.
understand here, I think we're missing the point here. Not to exceed could be a 1/4 inch. Look, it doesn't make a difference what's in our code. You understand what I'm saying? This is a proviso, something you want and are recommending, because council will have the ultimate approval. The fact that our council's going to be able to approve the fence means nothing. This is your decision here that you would approve this if this happened.
Correct.
Okay? It will make a difference what the code is. Right? Right now, the only thing they've agreed to is not in excess of 6 feet, which means nothing.
Right.
Okay. If for the purposes that your discussion here.
And for our
in other
purposes,
words,
it's stated-
for your
stated
purposes,
they want
want-
6
you
foot
know, so
minimum.
if you want a 6-foot fence, you say, look, we're approving this with the understanding that we're only approving it because we want to see you, council, do a 6-foot fence. Council may disagree with you.
Understood.
Okay.
Okay. So do we need, for protocol, does Randy need to restate his?
If he wants to
motion?
change his motion, you
Or do you
know,
want
if
to
you,
leave it-
if you feel that the motion, if Mr. Stout feels that the motion may get passed by being more specific on the fence, you know, you can make that motion. He doesn't have to go through, you could say same motion with this change. I won't put you through that.
Well, I had changed it once the last time to say at least 6 feet, so I'm not sure what anybody is looking for as far as.
You said at least 6 feet. You mean 6 feet?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I said first time, you guys didn't like that. So.
Okay.
So
What do you want, a 6-foot fence, opaque? You want a
Yeah,
6-foot
okay, well,
cyclone
yes,
phase,
I had
right?
to open.
Right, a 6-foot opaque fence. You want to make it anything more than that, you can. You know, I'm not trying to
Right.
drive the conversation here. It's just that it seems like everyone in the room's on the same page here. You
Right.
know, the builder wants a 6-foot fence, the gentleman next door wants a 6-foot fence, and so
Okay.
you want a 6-foot fence. I presume it's opaque.
I'll make a motion the same as my previous motion with the change in the fence, the provision of fencing to be 6 feet opaque
On the northwest and
on
south.
the north, west, and south borders of the property.
Okay. Do I have a second or discussion? Nobody willing to make a second? Okay. Do I have a motion for denial? Those are our two options.
Motion not to approve that.
Motion not to approve, yeah, exactly.
I make a motion not to approve. until we find out more about the traffic, whatever that takes.
Okay, so you make a motion to not approve until we find out more about regarding traffic. Okay. Do I have a second to that? Or discussion regarding it? Okay, Lori seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Nays?
Nay.
Nay. Okay. So, Jim? We have 2 yeas and 2 nays.
Well, then that'll be reported to the council.
Okay. And then we'll move on to council
Yeah,
accordingly.
not approve or approve or not disapprove, council split, vote taken 2-2.
And then, so protocol for the applicant would be what?
It doesn't make a difference, this is going to council regardless, regardless of what that vote is.
Okay. All right, great.
Yeah, see, council's going to sit there, they're going to know your vote was 2-2.
Okay.
Okay, I'll help you fill out the resolution. We'll say that the vote was 2-2 on a motion to disapprove, deadlocked. You know, don't agree, you know, I guess we'll write on that motion, do not approve, do not recommend approval or denial.
Okay. Good. All right, do I have any other motions? Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.